He is a bird. This bird's very shaky. There's one stuck. That's
For the final algorithm, I will demonstrate the height mapper. This algorithm is significantly simpler, and I didn't create a visualization for this one because you can easily see what's happening. I create a flat mesh, and so for the triangles, I make a 2D grid, and then the triangles are a pretty easy algorithm. It's just adding the index to the left, up, and the one to the right, or the one you started at. And then you can just do that for each quad, and then as long as you draw it, it's pretty simple to see what's happening. But for this terrain, I also chunked it up into 4 meshes, you can see, and colored the normals based off the height, or the max height. So the very top height is green, and then the very lowest height is gray. And the reason that you see this kind of line in between the meshes is because normal at a vertex is calculated based off each face around it, but the vertices on the different meshes don't know about the other surfaces to the left or beyond the mesh because it doesn't have access to the other mesh. So something we could have improved upon just a little bit more, and then cutting off the vertices afterwards. I would have made it a little more complicated, but this terrain was more of an afterthought. It's way more open, and it's nice to watch the boids fly around in this. And as you can see, the birds do get stuck. But the height map algorithm was pretty simple. It wasn't my main concern when I was creating all the code. And yeah, it's just too simple of an algorithm. And that's about it. Thank you. So for terrain generation, there are 2 algorithms used. The first one is marching cubes. This is the more complicated one. And here's a resource by Paul Bork, and he describes an algorithm where you take a 2D grid of points and you subdivide it into cubes, as you can see in this little diagram. And then for each cube, that cube will create a mesh based off the algorithm. And that's what the marching cube is. It's running an algorithm for each cube based off what the vertices of the cube look like. Now, the points are the vertices of the mesh, however, are the midpoints of the edges of the cube. So these green numbers are where the mesh vertices would be. But each vertex of the cube can be on or off, or in a surface or out of a surface. And then the cube will generate a mesh based off a lookup table. Now, each cube has 256 unique combinations because 2 to the 8th, or 8 vertices, is 256. If you see in this picture right here, number 3, the vertex number 3 is in a surface while all the other points are out of a surface. And that results in this mesh, as you see, this little triangle. It's kind of hard to see. You can see how the vertex or the index into a lookup table can be created by, or the 7th vertex would always add 128, or the 6th would always add 64, and this would give you a unique number every single time for the exact cube configuration. And here's what a lookup table looks like. And the list is just the indices into the mesh for the triangle. So this list right here that I'm highlighting has 9 numbers, which means 3 triangles. Okay. So now if you look at this picture of this bean almost, you can see that as you increase the resolution and distance between the points, you get a more smooth object, and all the cubes create one singular object. It doesn't look choppy. Now, for the actual project, I created a couple visualizations. So the first one is the noise. So Perlin noise was used in 3D Perlin noise at that. If I go ahead and run this script, you can see a bunch of points, and let me go ahead and start messing around with it. So this is a frequency of 0.11, and you can see that the blacks are usually together, and then it slowly fades into white, into clumps. And if I decrease the frequency, let's say half of what it was, it's a very smooth transition now. It's not jumpy at all. And that is what is used for terrain. And based off a certain threshold value, that would signify you're in a surface. And that is the basics of generating the points, like the booleans for the points. Now I had created another real-time updating, like something where I can update the values so you can see the real-time updates. Sorry, that was the same script. Go ahead and change scenes. Now in this generation script, I color the terrain pink for the sake of visualization, but you can see this is what it looks like. I have 15 vertices in each dimension. Sorry, it's 15 by 15 by 15, and there's a distance of 3 between each point. The frequency is 0.05. If I increase the surface value, which I was telling you later, so the threshold of signifying whether or not it's in a surface, you can see it shrinks if I go up, and it gets much thicker if I go down, which is what you want. Gives you nice control. But maybe you want maybe a chunkier terrain in general, 0.1. I can change that frequency, and you see now I just have a huge wall. If I change it further, you can see how it updates. And if I do a big jump here, you can see there's lots of complexities here. Now if I go back to the original values and I draw the edges, you can see how the mesh actually works. So the winding order is created for all of these triangles. Has to be in the correct winding order, and I think Unity uses clockwise counting order. Don't quote me on that. Now if we go into the actual scenes, we have the marching cube scene here and a player controller. I color the terrain based off the normals. Normals pointing straight up become green, and normals that are kind of at an angle become brown and gray, etc. based off a gradient. And I linearly interpolated that. And this is what the marching cubes algorithm does. Thank you very much.